Well, Ira spoke about the Pratt and Whitney engines and how they're part of the sustainability there. So let me just get straight to introducing Robert Cadieux from Pratt and Whitney of Canada. He's in charge of their environmental and sustainability development, and in fact has been named a Fellow because he's part of making the vision for their whole sustainability movement. So Robert Cadieux.
It's working. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Vous allez bien? Obviously, I'm not from Georgia, from Montreal, Canada, from Pratt Whitney Canada. It is an absolute pleasure to be here this morning for reasons that will be apparent in my presentation. First of all, if you ever meet one of our lawyers from our legal counsel, my presentation does not contain any technical data as defined by international trade compliance. And if they ask you the question and you say, yes, I saw the slide, it was actually the best slide in the presentation, it makes them happy. All right, so obviously we're a rather large organization. We're pretty much everywhere across the world, and my presentation this morning, outside of not containing technical data, is not actually going to contain much technical information. This is not going to be a technical presentation. We're going to see a lot of those in the next couple of days. As an icebreaker, I wanted us to sort of reflect this morning on why we're doing this. What's driving sustainability? So what's the why behind it? So it'll be, I guess, a little bit more inspirational. So obviously we've got a global footprint. Over 51,000 engines are still in operation. They say that an aircraft powered by a Pratt Whitney engine, Pratt Whitney Canada engine, takes off and lands every 2 seconds. And on a good day, as many land as take off. So big footprints, and it really defines our sustainability challenge and our stewardship responsibility. So a lot of OEMs, and we try to define ourselves as being the best aerospace engine manufacturer in the world, and we're trying to become the best engine manufacturer for the world and for airframers as well. So we're obviously in all of the different business markets. We make turbofans, turbo shafts, and turboprops. From the 800 that Ira mentioned earlier, fantastic engine. We're really stepped to the plate, redefined what an engine could be, not just for tomorrow, but for next year and for the years to come. Remembering, of course, that the big challenge we've got from a sustainability perspective is that our engines are out in service for a very long time. So if we don't get it right today, it's going to be wrong for several years. So it really kind of drives where we need to be as a company. So sustainability journey continues. This is the engine that Ira was mentioning. Fantastic engine. Really, we started with a blank slate, and decided, well, what are we going to do to be way beyond what we could have done 10 years ago? So really pushing innovation to its limit. I'm not going to go through all the details here. Needless to say, it is a fantastic engine, but it's being designed by what I consider to be really a fantastic company for fantastic customers. So really pushing the envelope. And this is how we're basically targeting sustainability. So obviously we've got a history of reinventing ourselves. As you can see, we've certified over 100 engines in the last 25 years. And for our type of industry, that's actually quite an achievement. To certify an engine where every single bolt is defined very strictly, it goes in this place, and this is the type of hardness. Really, certifying an engine is an incredible investment. And yet we do this constantly, much more than our competitors. So we're constantly asking ourselves, can we do better? Can we do this engine better? Can we squeeze out a little bit more SFC? Can we squeeze out a little fewer emissions? So really pushing the envelope constantly. So what is sustainability for Pratt Whitney Canada? We've all heard the Brundtland Report definitions of sustainability, but really we kind of use the term so often that we end up forgetting what they actually means, what those two keywords mean, sustainable development. Well, sustainability is the capacity of our human society, and we're all part of this society, to continue indefinitely within natural cycles. So how does a company do that? Well, maybe a more pragmatic definition of sustainability is that really human social well-being, our well-being, is really the objective. That's what we're trying to attain. We want to live happy lives, we want to live meaningful lives, and want to do that in an environment that's protected. So essentially, environmental integrity is really a condition to living well. And economy, what we do for a living, is really the means to do that. So essentially, you've all heard the definition of 3 Ps, people, planet, profit. And of course, what we provide is people, planet, and power, because that's what we provide to our customers. We sell them power, mobility. How many people in this room actually flew to get here? Probably a lot of people. And this is an incredible venue. We're going to be spending a very stimulating, fantastic couple of days, and it's only possible because of flight. So obviously we provide an essential service that has high value in society, but we have to be able to do it sustainably. So this is an educated crowd, so I'm not going to go through all of these KPIs, but we all know that anything that is being measured on this planet is trending in the wrong direction. So all these KPIs are accelerating at an insane rate. So early on, companies were asking themselves, how much longer can this go on? Society was asking themselves these questions. More relevant question is, for a company like us that suddenly becomes aware of these issues, what's our contribution? What's our guilt factor in all this? But perhaps the more intelligent question is, what does it mean for us? How do we redefine ourselves? How do we take these challenges, step up to them, and redefine the way we run our business so that we can sustain over time in a very Darwinian manner? So we based our approach on the natural step approach, which was developed in Sweden many years ago, and inspired ourselves from companies, even very local, and we'll get to that in the next couple of slides. But essentially, we're trying to redefine our business model so we're going to survive the fact that there's diminishing resources and increasing demand. And a company that redefines its business model to live up to those challenges will make it through the funnels, and those who ignore it and don't have the foresight to look down the road will hit the wall and disappear. So we think we've got a place in this society. We have to redefine the way we run our business to be able to sustain. So it's really a question of thriving in a challenging future. It really is very much a Darwinian evolution approach. So we want to, as I mentioned, transform ourselves by 2028. Why 2028? It's our 100th anniversary. So we want to have basically transformed ourselves and hand over our company in a transformed state to the next generation, knowing full well that we've done this many times. We've redefined ourselves over the years, started off as a piston engine manufacturer, where now we make essentially one of the best gas turbine engines on the market. So we want to go from being the best engine manufacturer in the world to become the best engine manufacturer for the world. So it's really a transformation that touches every single one of our employees. This is not a program that's run by a small department. So essentially what I do is I don't try to fix the company. I try to fix the people, the culture, our supply chain, our customers, so that everyone understands what their contribution to sustainability is. And the model behind that, as I mentioned earlier, is actually very local. So essentially we want to take care of our employees, our communities, and our common future. Once again, reference back to the Brundtland's definition of sustainability. This was actually our visioning session that was held many years ago, where we established where we wanted to be as a company by 2028. And you notice that there's, for anyone who knows the company, these are really the heads, the brains of this operation of our company. So all the VPs, President's Office, our execs, our fellows, and you'll notice that there's a couple of young folks on the top right, the top left, my right, your left. These are not young employees. These are actually children of our employees. So to make this exercise a lot more profound and really push ourselves to accept challenges that we may not have been comfortable with, we asked the children of our employees to come in and thank every one of these participants in person by handing them over a drawing they had made that was thanking him in advance for making decisions that would protect your future. So this wasn't a generic future. It was these people, they exist now. We were telling people during this session, the next president of this company could be in a room right now. The person who's going to be running this company 15 years from now exists right now and is going to school and will inherit this company. Do you want to inherit a company that's sort of okay, or do you want to inherit a company that is exceptional? And we can do this. So obviously 2028 is not the end game. We want sustainability to become a corporate culture, to become a corporate competency, so that everyone knows how they can contribute to sustainability. And that our target date by 2028 is to have transformed the way we run our business so that day-to-day decisions are made along this vision. So it's not the end game. So how do we organize it? Obviously, company the size of Pratt Whitney Canada, and UTC, Gulfstream, big companies, a lot of challenges. You try to keep it simple. So we sort of bucketized our targets along 5 main axes, strategic axes. So obviously the 2 first cover the product. We try to make the best products out there, our green engines. So lower emissions. We saw the chart earlier, what we call the ICAO chart that shows carbon neutral growth as of 2028 and a reduction of 50-50 by 2050, I should say. Well, obviously emissions is the first part. Everything that comes out of our engines. So we have aggressive targets that's really driven by R&D to make sure that our engines don't release as few components as possible. And then the second one is what our engines are made from. So the stuff that our engines are made from. We provide thrust. That's what we do. We sell power. But unfortunately, it has to be made with stuff. It's got to be made with magnesium. It's got to be made with titanium. So how do you sort of handle this whole logistics of keeping the material within our supply chain so that the scarcity of the resources essentially becomes irrelevant? So continuous flows, we call it recycling. Well, we've heard this term many times. But when you're talking about a supply chain as complex as ours, not easy. So we want to be able to preserve all these metals that allow us to make these fantastic engines. We want all our operations to be zero waste by 2028. Nothing goes to landfill. Every one of our waste stream is of interest to somebody else. So really using sort of industrial ecology type approach. And we're already starting to do this. Carbon neutral, all of our operations are to be carbon neutral by 2028. And I'm actually proud to say that as of this year, our corporate head office in Montreal is carbon neutral. Half of its energy comes from Hydro-Quebec, which is hydroelectricity, 2 grams per kilowatt hour. We're actually very privileged in Quebec to have that power. And our natural gas supply comes from a local landfill, which is essentially also carbon neutral. So we're down to about 800 metric tons of CO2 from our baseline of 15,000 a couple of years ago. So an impressive accomplishment, and actually the inspiration for that came, once again, very locally. And probably the most important of all these targets is the power of influence. We want to be able to influence our employees so that they become as competent in sustainability as all of the skills that they've got. And of course, work with our supply chain, work with the customers, and work with our industry. So we think we've got some great ideas. We have a fantastic vision, but it's all going to come together if we can sort of tie it all together with all our stakeholders. So once again, we want to become the best aerospace engine manufacturer for the world. So some examples here, we talked about LEED certification, something we're doing obviously, but beyond just saying we're going to plan on this. Our facility in Mirabel, which is where we assembled the 800, is LEED Gold and really could have been LEED Platinum. But you look at all the points that you need to get the platinum, some of them didn't make sense. So we actually made the decision we're going to do what needs to be done to make this an environmentally friendly and a safe building and not pursue artificial points. 800, we talked about that engine. We have fantastic engines. The example I gave about the carbon neutral natural gas supply in Quebec, it's actually supplying both Mirabel, where we assemble the 800, as well as our head office. And we're planning on doing even more of that in the near future. Water conservation in Singapore, I can talk about that, but essentially running out of time, so I'm going to do this very quickly. Another example at the bottom, you see there's a picture of our woodland. Backyard of Pratt Whitney Canada in Longueuil, there's a 32-hectare woodland, which is one of the last remaining green spaces in Longueuil. And we're actually starting to take measures with the local government to transform that into natural reserve. We have several threatened species living right in the backyard, and instead of selling this off so it can be turned into condos or be converted into an industrial park, we're actually going to be returning this to the community and making it a natural reserve in the next couple of years. And there's a little picnic area there where we're going to be sending our employees to have lunch, reconnect with nature, and we'll see why that's relevant in the next couple of slides. When we started our sustainability vision multiple years ago, we started to attract attention. And as we were starting to attract attention, our communications department said, "This is fantastic. We're really seen as sustainability leaders. We should be applying on all the awards we can possibly win." And we said, "Well, you're not really getting it. We should be doing it the other way around. If sustainability is truly important to us, and it is, we should be rewarding people who share our vision." So we turned around, we created the Pratt Whitney Canada Sustainability Supplier Award, and I've been giving that out for the last couple of years, recognizing the suppliers that are helping us become a more sustainable company in itself. So this is, I think, a picture of the first award we gave out a couple of years ago. So where do I come from? I was born and raised in Ile Perrot several years ago. Won't mention my age, but essentially this is pre-Nintendo and Xbox and Facebook, and so my backyard was my playground. This is where I spent all of my youth, is in the woodlands behind. So an early connection to nature is probably what drove me to make my entire career around environmental protection. We've got a picture here of the Earth taken from 1 million miles away. So obviously, you only protect things that you love. And that's just something that really defines our culture. So where does the connection between Pratt Whitney Canada in Longueuil, Quebec, and in Georgia? Actually, I started this in the 1990s. This is a screen capture of an article I wrote for a corporate newspaper in 1997. And if you look carefully, there's a reference to Interface Carpeting, who was early on an inspiration for me. I'd read Ray Anderson's book, actually got to meet him in person, and we actually invited him to come present to our senior team in the early 2000s. I think it was in the 2006 timeframe when we were starting to think about sustainability. So here's Mr. Anderson, who was presenting to our senior team when we were starting to think about how we're going to redefine who we are as a company. So in a very eloquent manner, Georgia know-how is what defines Pratt Whitney Canada's sustainability vision. And I'll leave you with an exercise. This is a fantastic quote from Ray Anderson. If I have another 2 minutes, I'm a little bit late. Can I take two more minutes? This will be the sort of the interactive session. Does anybody recognize this picture? Little Prince of Saint-Exupéry. If you were born and raised in Quebec, this is our Christopher Robins. This is Winnie the Pooh for us. If you were born and raised in Quebec, this is the story you read as a kid. A little prince that lives on a tiny satellite. So here's the exercise for you. What happened on the 31st of October, 2011? The 7th billionth human being joined this planet. As of this morning, I didn't count myself, there are 7.4 billion people living on this planet. So imagine you take our planet Earth and you divide it amongst 7.4 billion people. So every one of you gets 7.4 billionth of that planet. Part of it is ocean, so we'll take that part out. We all want to retire on the ocean's edge, but we don't live in the ocean. So we'll take that bit out. Part of your planet is going to be permanently frozen, deserts, mountains, and part of it is keeping you alive. It's the forests that purify the air, it absorbs your waste, produces the minerals for your car, it's going to produce the fuel that you use, it does everything for you. And as your kids grow up, part of that will have to go to them. So if we add another 100 million people, we have to subdivide it and give it out to these people as well. You can't reinvent a planet B. There's just the one we live on. So here's a challenge to you. If you take that 7.4 billionth of a piece and fold it into a tiny planet that you live on, and you go for a walk around that tiny planet, how long do you think it takes to take a walk around that planet? Think about it, 2 seconds. What's your time frame? A day? A week? A few hours? It takes about 3 minutes at a relatively slow pace. So it is not as big a planet as we think. And it drives, once again, home the reason why we're here today and why we need to take this very seriously over the next 2 days and certainly over the next few years. So thank you for your time, and I hope this was useful to you.